I only had one memory from when I was a toddler, and it was weird. In it, I was about 2 years old and lying in a hospital ward. Everything felt like a dream. My stomach was in knots, but the smiles on my parents' faces were calming. They patted me on the head and said everything would be okay. You're going to be perfect soon. Hi, I'm Annabelle Bennett. You're probably wondering why I look so weird. Pointy ears, purple eyes, and a mysterious pattern on the back of my hand. I was born that way. After all, I'm an elf. Watch the video all the way to the end to learn my full story. Press like and get comfy. I got my unusual looks from my parents. They were elves too. Ever since I was a kid, Mom and Dad had been saying that we were special. Of course, they believed every word they said, and I felt unique. But that didn't save me from being bullied at school. My classmates were ordinary children. They couldn't accept the way I looked, and they didn't believe I was an elf. You're just wearing a costume because you want attention. If you were actually good at something, you'd use your skills to show off, not your looks. Guys, let's go. Annabelle, you can't play with us. I did have some cool skills, actually. For example, I knew everything there was to know about plants, and I loved to take care of them. I didn't have any friends. So I made some up so I wouldn't feel lonely. I like to write fantasy stories about the adventures of an elf, a mermaid, and a prince. I guess you could say I lived in a world of my own. When I turned 14, Mom and Dad said they were having problems at work. We couldn't afford to live in our spacious apartment anymore. Annabelle, we're going to have to move to Milton. It's a small town. Your dad and I were born there. Wow, I took the news well. It was my chance to finally make some friends. My parents weren't excited about the move at all, though. What I wouldn't give to stay here. We'll have to face our dark past once we're in Milton. They were being so mysterious it made me wonder, what happened to my parents in that town? We put all our things in the car and drove all the way to Milton. Our new house was big, and not just big, it was huge. Its old walls seemed to be hiding ancient secrets, and it also smelled like vanilla inside. Can you believe it? I like it here. The town was pretty cozy too. My parents were acting weird though. They walked around the town cautiously, like they were afraid of drawing attention to themselves. As soon as we set foot into our new home, Mom and Dad pointed at one of the rooms and told me never go in there. Terrible things will happen if you go into that room. Got it, Annabelle? I got it, Dad. I was dying of curiosity. What could they possibly be hiding in that mysterious room? Still, I was a good kid and I listened to my parents. The day I was dreading, but also looking forward to, finally came. My first day at a new school. As I walked there, I couldn't help but wonder whether I would manage to make some friends or become a weird loner again. Just as I expected, my new classmates immediately crowded around me and started asking why I looked so strange. Are you a cosplayer? No, me and my parents are elves. We were born like this. Everyone whispered to each other, surprised. Some of the students looked puzzled, some grinned incredulously, but most of them seemed impressed by my unusual appearance. One guy clutched his stomach and burst into hysterical laughter. Elves? Oh, that's a good one. He picked up a cardboard box, made slits for the eyes in it, and put it on his head. If you're an elf, then I'm a transformer. I wanted to snap back at him, but a girl called Kate Summers stopped me. Don't mind Charlie, he's the class clown. Tell me more about yourself, Annabelle. You're so interesting. Feeling a bit shy, I told Kate about my hobbies and my family. By the end of my story, she was staring at me with stars in her eyes. Wow, I'm so jealous. My parents are boring, and so am I. I like swimming, but nothing interesting really ever happens to me. I really liked Kate. She was so friendly and honest. We chatted all through recess and walked to the classroom together. Our literature teacher, Mrs. Gray, was a bit like a female version of Dumbledore. No beard, but she did have really long gray hair. Mrs. Gray told us to write an essay about a book I'd read at my previous school. I got bored and started writing a new story about my character's adventures in a fantasy world instead. At the end of the class, Mrs. Gray collected everyone's papers, quickly looked through them, and then asked me to stay behind. Oops, I thought I was in trouble. But to my surprise, Mrs. Gray smiled at me warmly. Annabelle, you have a unique writing style. You should keep developing your skills. Is your last name Bennett? It is, ma'am. It sounds familiar. Are Roger and Alice Bennett by any chance your parents? Yeah, they are. Do you know them? I might look young, but I've been working at this school for a long time. I taught your parents 20 years ago when they were still high school students. Wait a minute, how is that possible? Mom and Dad said they graduated from high school a long time ago. They claimed elven lives lasted longer than an ordinary person's. Could Mrs. Dumbledore Mrs. Gray, be mistaken? Before I could ask anything else, Kate called me. Annabelle, let's do homework at your place. I agreed without hesitation. For the first time ever, I had a friend who didn't care that I looked weird. As we were leaving school, we ran into Charlie again. He was brandishing a toy lightsaber. Look, now we have an elf and a Jedi studying at our school. I snatched the sword out of his hands and I twisted it into a heart. Hey, you broke it! That's what you get for teasing me. Oh, snap! Go, Annabelle! Girls can't take a joke. Kate and I went to my place. I went to the kitchen to get some snacks while my friend wandered around the house. She almost walked into the room that my parents told me was off limits. Kate, wait, you can't go in there. Why? What's in there? I don't know, but Dad said terrible things will happen if you go into that room. Got it, Annabelle? Oh, that's so cool! We sat in my room, ate sandwiches, and did our homework. At some point, Kate got thirsty and went to the kitchen. I kept reading the textbook, but soon I realized my friend had been gone for too long. I know our house is big, but it isn't big enough to get lost in. I looked for Kate and I found her in that mysterious room. It made me frown and my friend smiled guiltily. I'm sorry, Annabelle. It's just that my life is so boring. I've always wanted to go on adventures, and I thought I'd find something mysterious here in the room, but there's nothing special in here. I looked around and realized that Kate was right. It was an ordinary bedroom. Then I noticed that there were a lot of paintings there, but for some reason they were facing the walls. Now that was suspicious. I turned one of the paintings around and saw that it was a photo of an old lady. Her eyes were purple, like mine, but other than that, she looked like an ordinary person. Kate and I were both startled by the sound of the front door being slammed shut. Mom and Dad are back. Let's go. But before we could leave the room, my parents stormed inside. Oops, they were about to go ballistic. Annabelle, we told you to stay out of this room. And who is this girl? My friend wasn't intimidated and politely introduced herself. I'm Annabelle's classmate, Kate Summers. It's nice to meet you. For some reason, her words just added fuel to the fire. Mom and Dad kicked Kate out and told me I wasn't allowed to talk to her again. That girl is bad news, Annabelle. I didn't know what got into them, but at that moment, all I could think about were those photos. I saw pictures of an old lady in that room. Who is she? Mom and Dad exchanged a tense look. They hesitated, but eventually Dad gave in and told me the secret. Annabelle, that old lady is my mom. She died recently, and that's why we moved into the house. You never told me I had a grandmother. Why aren't her ears pointy? Aren't we all elves? She was half human. That's why only her eyes were unusual. Enough with the questions. But you heard your father, no more questions. I rolled my eyes and I went to my room. My parents had changed since our move to Milton. They were constantly annoyed by something. Later that day, I was going to the kitchen to drink a glass of milk before going to bed when I accidentally overheard a weird talk between Mom and Dad. They apparently met their worst nightmare that afternoon. Some guy called Justin. He had yelled at them for something. With our looks, we won't be able to find good jobs in Milton either. We should sell the house as soon as possible and get out of here. This town brings back too many bad memories. There were so many things Mom and Dad weren't telling me. How long were they gonna feed me lies? The next morning, Mrs. Gray asked me to read my essay in front of the whole class. I was feeling shy, but Kate was there to cheer me on. You got this, Annabelle! I was so nervous I almost started hiccuping, but I managed to get a good grip on myself. This is a story about 3 friends, an elf, a mermaid, and a prince. The 3 of them all traveled around the world and fought evil dragons. When I finished, my classmates burst into applause. Everyone liked my story. Well, everyone but Charlie. He pretended he'd fallen asleep out of boredom and even drooled on the desk. What a blockhead. After the class, I stayed behind and I asked Mrs. Gray to tell me more about my parents' teenage years. Alice and Roger were classmates. They were very quiet and introverted children living in their own imaginary world. Their classmates liked to prank them, especially a boy called Justin. No wonder your parents ran away from Milton as soon as they could. Then she dusted off a 20-year-old yearbook and handed it to me. Look, it's your mom and dad. And there's Justin. He was the biggest bully at school. I was left speechless when I saw those photos. For some reason, in them, my parents looked ordinary except for Dad's purple eyes. Where were their pointy ears? My parents had always told me we were born with our unique features. Were they lying to me? I had too many questions. It was time to get some answers. As soon as I got home, I demanded an explanation. I saw your photos. Why did you look so different when you were teenagers? Mom and Dad were at a loss. They said that they'd always been dreamers who liked fantasy novels and they wanted to be special. No one understood them. Justin once locked us in the school bathroom for the whole weekend. As soon as we came of age, we left Milton and had ear surgeries to look like our favorite elf characters, and I started wearing contacts. My eyes are actually purple. You got that from me. Why do I have pointy ears and this pattern on my hand then? then. My parents finally revealed their biggest secret. It turned out I had a surgery and was given a tattoo when I was just a toddler. I was too young back then and I didn't remember anything. You're going to be perfect soon. Please don't be mad, sweetheart. We wanted our family to be unique. You never asked me what I wanted. Did it ever occur to you I might want to be ordinary? You never fit in and you made sure I wouldn't either. It's your fault I never had any friends. I got mad and I ran away from home. Mom and Dad deprived me of a normal childhood. I didn't want to see them. So I went to Kate's swimming practice and I told my friend about everything that happened. I don't want to go home. Let's go to my place for dinner then. But fair warning, my family is so boring you might fall asleep listening to them. A boring dinner with ordinary people? That was exactly what I wanted. I accepted my friend's invitation without hesitation. While Kate was changing, I saw a hoodie in her locker and I asked her if I could borrow it. Sure, take it. Why do you want to change though? I don't want anyone to see my stupid ears anymore. I pulled on the hoodie and half an hour later we were at Kate's house. My friend was right. Her family was very ordinary. Her mom was cooking spaghetti and her dad was fixing the refrigerator when we came. Soon, we had dinner and decided to play Monopoly. I really liked Kate's family, but I was afraid the whole evening they'd see my ears. Just as I feared. Eventually, the hood fell off my head. Those pointy ears. Are you Alice and Roger Bennett's daughter? Yeah. Did you know my parents? We used to be classmates. So, those psychos didn't just turn themselves into some fairy tale creatures, but they'd also ruined their child's life. They should be in jail for this. Justin, please calm down. Hold on a sec. Was his name Justin? Had I been talking to my parents' bully the whole time? I took a closer look at Kate's dad and I realized he did look like the grown-up version of that bastard. So that's why Mom and Dad didn't want me to hang out with Kate. She was the daughter of their enemy. Holy crud. Mr. Summers pissed me off. You call my parents psychos, but you were the one who treated them like trash when you were a kid. Annabelle, your parents are not as innocent as you think. Mr. Summers was still saying something, but I didn't listen to him and I ran back home. I didn't want to talk to my parents either, so I locked myself in my room and I refused to open the door. The next morning, I put on Kate's hoodie and I went to school. I spent the whole day ignoring Charlie's taunts and trying not to draw attention to myself. At some point, that jerk decided it would be fun to take off my hood and pull on my ears. Take off your fake ears already. It made my blood boil, so I burst into tears and cried out, I'd love to take these stupid ears off, but they're real. They're a part of me. My classmates' jaws dropped to the floor, and I ran out of school and came back home. Once I got there, I saw that my parents had put up our house for sale. Perhaps that was for the best. I was watering the flowers in the backyard when Kate came over. Annabelle, there's something important you need to know. My dad's gonna call child services on your parents for mistreating you. What? How dare he mess with my family? I asked Kate for her dad's number and I called Mr. Summers. You already ruined my parents' lives. Was that not enough for you? Do you want me to end up in an orphanage and suffer too? How could you be so heartless? I did make fun of Alice and Roger, but we were just kids. I've grown up, but they're still living in an illusion. Fairy tales belong in books. Your parents have the right to decide on how they live their own lives, but what bothers me is they took away your choice. He was silent for a moment and then said something that made my heart sink. Alice and Roger are terrible people. I yelled at them when we met after all these years because I found out they'd put your grandmother in a nursing home to get their hands on her house. I couldn't believe my ears. Mom and Dad said we'd moved because Grandma passed away. I needed to get to the bottom of this. Kate said she'd help me. Heck yeah! This is all I've ever dreamed of! Where do we start? We need to find the address of the nursing home. Follow me. I knew where my parents hid the things they didn't want me to find. In Grandma's bedroom. Kate and I searched the room and we found a brochure with the address of a nursing home. That's probably where they sent Grandma. Let's go. We ran outside and bumped into Mr. Jerk. Get lost, Charlie. I don't have time for you. Annabelle, wait. I wanted to apologize for being a jerk. I thought your ears weren't real. Okay, you're forgiven. Now get out of my way. Where are you going? We're saving Annabelle's grandma. Wow, sounds like a blast. I'm coming with you. At first, I was annoyed that Charlie tagged along, but then I thought, the more the merrier. He kept joking around the entire way there, and I even caught myself laughing. We finally got to the nursing home. I met my grandmother and I pulled her into a hug. Annabelle, look at you, my beautiful girl. We have the same eyes, see? Grandma said that she had done her best to talk my parents out of changing my appearance when I was young. They got mad and broke off all contact with her. When I grew up and they had money problems, they sent Grandma to a nursing home to sell her house. They really are terrible people. Grandma, I promise I'll get you your house back. My friends and I left after that. That evening, Child Services paid us a visit. I didn't cover for my parents parents, and I said they treated me and my grandmother terribly. That shocked everyone. Soon, Mom and Dad were deprived of their parental rights. They acted like they were the victims and moved to another city, but I knew they'd never be able to run away from themselves. Grandma got her house back, and I stayed with her in Milton. I finally had real friends. Kate the Mermaid and Prince Charlie. Who would have thought that my own parents would turn out to be the evil dragons? Mr. Summers was right. Fairy tales belonged in books. I'll keep developing my skills and become a writer. As for my looks, I decided I wouldn't change anything. It's not my elf ears that make me unique, but my personality.